I deliberated for a good 2 days whether or not I was going to cancel this session today. And nonetheless, here we are, and it ended up happening. And now that it's happening, I am super excited that it's happening. So welcome, nice to gather with you today. Last week we took off, and then I think in a few days I take off to Sweden for at least a couple weeks, so we won't be together again. And the opportunity of this session, exploring the topic of self-love, permission to be you. My goodness, I don't know for you, but I know definitely for me, there's going to be a difficulty in approaching this subject matter, mostly because it's so resonant for my own being right now. And naturally, the more deeply you go into spirituality, the more authentic it is, the more it touches the most raw parts of yourself. And so I hope to keep a safe distance from fluffy spiritual language and get at the core of our humanness and find a new depth of permission in all aspects of being human. And quite honestly, it feels as if I have a tremendous amount to say about this topic. And so I'm going to start by sharing some insight and wisdom, and then do the meditation after that. It seems that as we explore the root dilemma in being human, as we've mentioned many, many times before, it's as if the dilemma points back to a perceived inadequacy about the self. In so much a way that whatever problem we might see ourselves to have, or even a problem projected outward, somehow or another it points back to the idea or a belief that the self is not enough. And do you see how this pointing could also be expressed in a way that says the self is not lovable? That it seems like it's lacking some love that we crave. And I'd like for a moment, as we approach this topic of self-love, for us to look at the nature of love itself. And we can explore the nature of love by looking at its dance between the play of human beings. And I invite us to recognize that when love is expressed in its most genuine way from one person to another, it's almost as if this love says, I accept you as you are. I see you as you are. Do you notice that the sincerity of love doesn't necessarily say, I want something from you? It doesn't say, I need you to be this or that. This great love is like a movement of allowing. And I think it's wise to really bring a sense of clarity to this, because the conditioning that we've grown up with around ideas of love often becomes a possessive love. It shows itself as a conditional love that says, I love you if. Do you see this? I love you if is like a statement that says, I want to love you in the future. Which doesn't speak to a real love right now. I will love you if I get what I want. And it's important to recognize that however ingrained or conditioned that might be, that we see the innocent insanity of this. The I love you if is not a recognition that I love you right now. In this examination of love in human beings, and in my playful attempt to articulate this, do you see how the only thing this love desires for the other is for the other to be what they are, for the other to see their own okayness, for the other to discover a space of rest that says it's okay for you to be you. Because we can recognize all of the commotion within the being that feels separate from love is a commotion that says, I can't just be present right now. I can't be still. Something's wrong with me. And then love comes in and creates a foundation that says, no, 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 no. All is well. If you're angry, it's okay that you're angry. If you're sad, it's okay that you're sad. And do you see this expression of a permission to be as you are is almost like an expression of permission for you to finally be honest. Honest in your emotion, honest in your feeling, honest in your thought, honest in your humanness. And my goodness, do you see that this is the great difficulty? I can't just be as I am, which is like saying I can't be honest. And if I can't be honest, it's like saying I can't be the truth of what I am. Is there anything more painful than this? So painful as to say you are not worthy of you. And in my own examination of my life, it seems like this has been the only challenge. Some intrinsic fear that says it's not okay for the truth to be the truth. It's not okay for me to be me. And you can see this intrinsic fear is almost a fear that says, I don't know if it's okay to be honest because I might get rejected. Which is like saying, and hear me here, I don't know if it's okay to love myself because you might not love me. I've pointed to this many times before with the statement of, if I want you to accept me, I have to reject myself. Which is, again, something that could say, in my attempt that wants you to love me, I must withhold love from myself. Which is to say, I must be who you want me to be. And we see this throughout the conditioning of the human experience, as we are somewhat determined to be accepted by the world, to be loved by the world, to get something from the world. And as always, I invite us to look at this with a very soft openness that's not here to judge it, but to see it and to hold it gently. Because as far as I'm concerned, the authenticity of a genuine spirituality is that to connect with spirit creates a foundation, creates a space where you recognize a safety in falling into your deepest sincerity. You notice this, the conclusion of spirituality is all is well. Do you see how that includes your sincerity? It's not all is well, so you should feel a certain way. It's all is well, so you can now lay down the defense. All is well, so now you can be human. And so easy it can be to get caught up into a spiritual charade of I should feel like this and I should feel like that. If spirituality is going to give rise to healing, then spirituality is going to create a space for you to finally see what is asking for healing. And you know what? That's painful. And in so many ways, this has been pointed to before in the statement, to be human is to suffer. Is part of it. And yes, granted, there's something within us that can argue with that and say, no, it shouldn't be that way. But let me ask you, how's that going? It's unavoidable. It's inescapable that in some way, as you travel whatever path you are on, you are going to come face to face with some flavor of suffering. Which is to say, you're going to come face to face with some fear that is afraid to be yourself, with some fear that is afraid to be honest. And I say these things to point directly at a discovery that recognizes, one second. It's kind of like waiting for water to boil. It takes forever. I say these things so that we see just how directly connected self-love is with self-honesty. So much to say that the real love for self is to allow yourself to be honest. And I invite you to see the great difficulty in that, unless I'm the only one. And to see how the difficulty is tied to a fear of potentially being rejected, potentially losing the love that somebody might have for you. And yes, we could use spiritual language that says, you're afraid of losing your ego. But more deeply rooted is the authenticity of being human. Where yes, we are afraid of losing the idea of ourselves. Because without it, we get swallowed by the void. We are thrust into the unknown. In such a way, you can see that when there is a movement within you that wants to be honest, you see that you have to walk into the unknown. See this? I don't know what's going to happen. In this points very, very gently to see how our perceived future security is held together by a self-dishonesty. The way that we hold on to tomorrow is through rejecting ourselves. And in a way, I hope you see how painful that is, while also saying, I'm sorry. Because to connect with the pain of it is to also see the doorway waiting for you to walk through. There's an illustration of this that I love so much. And that is the simplicity of allowing life to be life, which is like saying, allowing your breath to be your breath. You'll notice that if you recognize the breath that's happening right now, it is so incredibly effortless. You can see the breath is the truth. It's there. It's real. It's happening. And what happens when you start holding your breath? Sooner or later, you start to feel like you're going to die. Is this any different from withholding sincerity? Not allowing yourself to feel as you do. In my own experience, at any time something within me feels twisted, it's because there is a sincerity showing itself. And then something inside says, no, not that. Life is moving. Do you see that the play of self-honesty, the play of sincerity, is simply to acknowledge what is there? what is true, what is real. This is the nature of sincerity or honesty. What actually is. What actually is. The same with the breath. What actually is. And why do you hold your breath when you're stressed out, when you're anxious? Because you lose control over where life might be going. And in our movement of withholding our breath, we're trying to control life, to protect our future, to make sure we get what we want. Again, any different from withholding sincerity? No. This is what I love about the expression of love between human beings. Is in my experience with the love that sees another human being, the sincerity of that love says, you have permission to be honest. Even if it's not what I want to hear, you have permission to be you. And I think it's wise to look at that dynamic in relationship where we might not want another person to be honest. Is it any reason other than it destroys our own illusion? It shows us we can't hold on. Any movement that doesn't want to allow another person's sincerity, is it even about the other person? Maybe you've heard the spiritual quote, it's a biblical quote, that says something that the greatest love a man could have for another is to lay down his own life. Do you see how closely that's tied to laying down your own ego? Laying down who you think you are, and allowing the other to live. Allowing the other to breathe. There's a great opportunity for practice in this. Even to explore all of your past experiences where you didn't like somebody else's honesty. And to really look at why. And to see that it wasn't really about them. All of this is a great practice that points you inward to your most sincere heart in recognizing a permission for you to finally breathe. And my goodness, this really seems like it points to a profound simplicity, because naturally, in the spiritual phrase of self-love, that can get super fluffy really quick. But what love is there that's greater than simply allowing you to be you? You know, I would imagine that this gives rise to the Catholic play of confession. Right? You get to get in a little booth with a perceived safety. All right, I know this guy can't repeat anything that I'm gonna say. I'm safe, and I can just get it out. And in the flow of just getting it out, you discover a profound forgiveness. That it's okay. And in this, I would invite one to explore that sacred space of confession in yourself, where you be honest with yourself. And even though this might sound elementary, it reaches into the most advanced stages of spirituality, which is to recognize often, if not always, our greatest challenge is being honest with ourselves. And so easy it can be in the play of spirituality to avoid your own self-honesty with spiritual nonsense. Which is like recognizing, yeah, I am pissed off about something. Yes, I am hurting about something. Yes, I am sad about something. Rather than trying to distance yourself with concepts of spirituality. You see, to be human, in the same way, for life to be life, is to experience all the seasons. For life to be life is to experience the daytime and the nighttime. Autumn, winter, spring, summer. Hot, cold, and everything in between. And in the same way that if you ever find a genuine love for another human being, and I mean genuine love, not a love that secretly wants something, then you will discover a profound beauty in all of their seasons. Where it's not a statement of, I love your spiritual facade, it's, I love your rawness. I love the aliveness of what you are. And naturally, thus is the invitation to fall into the aliveness of what we are. To make contact with not just the water inside of us, but also the fire. And naturally, as one discovers more deeply the core of spirituality, which in so many ways is to expose your inherent aloneness in your connection to divinity, you see that there is nothing to rely on in the world. And if that's the case, you might as well just be you. Do you see this? And again, yes, it's completely insane. Welcome to the club. But do you see how, in one way, the reason we are not ourselves, the reason we are not honest, is we think other people see us. We think that there are other people judging us. We think that there are other people loving or not loving us. And in the discovery that all is one, that there is no other, that it's all a reflection of the one, you find a profound permission to be you. also want to bring clarity to one of the distractions that resists further the flow of this sincerity. And that distraction is that we think we need to understand our own sincerity. We need to figure out why we feel the way that we do, rather than just feeling the way that we do. And I invite you to see the subtle way that the ego might move as a way of avoiding this sincerity through trying to figure it out. And its avoidance is simply a way or mechanism with keeping itself safe. In the same way, you can see the example of you're in a job that absolutely doesn't resonate with your being, that you recognize a profound sincerity that says, this is not for me. And something within you is on fire that says, I wish I could just jump out of this boat. But the mind says, but I don't know what's going to happen. I have to figure it out first. How many people have stayed in jobs where they slowly kill themselves because they couldn't figure out the next step? Or how many people have stayed in relationship because they were afraid of the unknown, that they might be alone, and they slowly die? And that's not to bring judgment, but to bring a spotlight at the pain we create through denying what's authentic. And for the one who doesn't jump, I feel you. I understand. It's scary. There is no demand from life that says you must. But maybe I can hold a space that allows you to truly feel the pain. And in the most gentle and compassionate way, to feel that pain and to see that it is self-inflicted. Not that you're doing something wrong, but you're not allowing you to be you. You are stabbing yourself in the heart. And to avoid this, we tell all sorts of fantastic stories about how it's somebody else's fault. In the example of being in a job that doesn't resonate, you create all the stories about your bosses or your work associates. They're not enough. Avoiding the truth of the matter. Same goes in relationship. Do you see how we attempt to project the pain onto somebody else? That I feel this way because of what they're doing or not doing? Gently. When deep down we're just denying a love to what we are. Because I can promise you this, again, gently, if you are withholding love from any other human beings, it is a reflection of a love you are withholding from yourself. Which is also to say that if you are blaming any other human being, in some way you're blaming yourself. Thus is the cosmic mirror that offers reflection that points you back to the doorway. It's like if you're not allowing another human being to be what they are, you'll experience a pain which points you back to see that you're not allowing yourself to be what you are. And my goodness, as far as I'm concerned, this whole play of being human is constantly trying to wake us up to this. It's not that life is saying you should love yourself. Life is saying you can. Life isn't saying you should be sincere. Life is saying you can. Isn't that what you really want? To be what you are? Is this not the only pain you're experiencing? And so great is the opportunity in the play of being human, where we can hold space for one another. But I can tell you that if you're in whatever relationship dynamic, whether it's family, friends, co-workers, if somebody else is having a difficult time, do you see what the difficulty is? They're looking for a space where they can breathe, where they can say whatever is held on the inside without having to justify it, without having to understand it, but just to finally breathe. It's like a play of a child who won't be honest. Do you know why? They fear judgment. And that fear of judgment simply creates a restriction and a pain. And my goodness, how obvious is this in the play of parenting when you have a child that kind of spirals out of control? The pain just builds and builds and builds. They don't have anywhere to go where they can just be honest, where they can just be open, admit they don't know what they're doing, admit that they're making mistakes, admit that they're scared. And what a great opportunity for the play of love that is the parent that says, I love you regardless. I support you regardless. I don't need you to be this or that. I'm here to support you. Is that not the whisper from life? Is that not the voice of the divine that says, my dear, all is well, regardless? I'm not looking for you to be this or that. You are already the prize. I am here to hold space for you to dive into the depth of your own heart and connect with the miracle of what you are, which, if anything, is the freedom to be what you are. And the more you connect with this freedom to be what you are, by default, you're going to hold space for others to be what they are. Is there not a light that shines brighter than this? Is this also not the catalyst for change? To be radically honest with yourself? To feel the pain deeply? So easy we can spend time running around, trying not to be in touch with it. And through our personal experience, we can look and see that it always comes back. I tell you, in order to connect with the truth of the life that you are, you have to let go of the life you think you have. And yeah, I get it. That's not fun. but it's going to put you in touch with something that's actually real. Once again, there's no demand. Once again, there's an infinite sea of compassion that understands the perceived difficulty of that. It's almost like a loving friendship that doesn't demand the friend be honest. It's a loving friendship that says, I love you regardless. When you're ready, no rush. Do you see this? Because the love doesn't want anything. If anything, it sees the adorable nature of the withholding. And in my own experience, in so many ways, the ultimate sincerity that I get pointed towards is like a confession that I have no clue what I'm doing. And in that, there's a trail of all of the different ways I'm pretending to know what I'm doing. And the spiritual journey is almost like looking at all of those things. Only to discover that all of the ways of pretending to know what I don't really know is only creating pain. Which is almost like an invitation from life that says, you don't have to know. And even though we can say that the finality of that discovery is that I don't know what I'm doing, it doesn't mean to ignore all of the other signposts along the trail. We can't simply skip to the end. It would be my interpretation that says this is what drives every human being to madness, is that they feel like they can't be themselves. And surely we've all experienced this in some way, or we're experiencing it now, where we get ourselves wrapped up into a life path that is not in alignment. And we slowly drive ourselves mad. So far as to say, again speaking from my own experience, this is what gives birth to all mental illness. And again, speaking to my own experience, this is also what would lead to try to avoid that pain of mental illness by taking a pill or something to remove the symptom. I remember when I was a teenager and crazy depressed, everybody else wanted me to take drugs. You need to get on something. But I remember recognizing a profound sincerity in it, where it was like, no, something is wrong. I need to listen to it. And my friends, this too is also its own cycle. So you're not going to have a one-time fixes-it-all experience. You'll recognize the cycle of this play. where it is a cycle that constantly puts you back in touch for the one who's willing with your own being, with your sincerity. You will be invited to go out and play in this landscape called life. Contained within you is a guidance system of pain that directly points you to where you are not allowing yourself to be yourself. Let's do a meditation for about 10 minutes. Create a space within ourselves that recognizes a genuine permission to be. And I'm super excited to use my new birthday bells here. Let us begin by simply recognizing the breath. We recognize that the breath is present. The breath is alive. Recognize that without the breath, there would be no life. In this, we can recognize a profound appreciation for the breath. Throughout your whole life, in and out, it flows. And I invite you to recognize that the moment you think this breath is yours to control, breathing becomes difficult. In fact, the moment you put your attention on your breath, it becomes a little bit more difficult, less natural. You resist it in some way. Notice that the breath is given so that life might be life, so that you might be you. It is not yours to control. It is not yours to withhold. For when you do, you start to feel like you're going to die. In this, we can let go of the breath and honor its flow. If you were to hold your breath and start to feel pain, do you see the invitation from life that says, my dear, breathe? Breathe. And in the same way, if you feel the pain of withholding a sincerity, withholding what is true within you, life says, my dear, breathe. Let it out. And to let it out is to acknowledge what's there. It is to be honest with yourself. Ignore all the spiritual rules and breathe. Ignore all of the stories of how you should or should not feel. And breathe. Confess your heart to life. If you must, drop to your knees and surrender everything. Breathe. Do you see that if life is asking anything, Life is asking for you to breathe. Life is asking for you to be you. Not demanding, inviting. And naturally, something within us says, I wish I could just let go and breathe. My goodness. I wish I could just let it out. I wish I could just be what I am and know that all is well. Please recognize that such a space as this, that we might call meditation, but also understanding that this space is always here. It's like recognizing that this space exists so that you can breathe, so that you can be you, so that you can be honest. Is there any play greater than this? Than discovering a depth of love that continues to allow you to be you? This is the real prize. This is the only prize. And so innocently insane is it to think that there is some other prize than this, than a love extended to the totality of what you are. A love extended to everything you feel, everything you think, every way that you move. A love that is unconditional. And this love, seen within one's own being, is the training ground that allows you to walk on this earth in love. To connect with this love within that allows yourself to be yourself is a light that shines and extends a love to others. My goodness, this is everything. So funny is it that we think life might be about something else. And as we connect with this permission to be as we are, to feel as we feel, without a self-judgment waiting around the corner, may we extend this love to all others. A love that isn't looking for something in return. A love that doesn't want something from someone else, but a love that holds space for love to be seen. in this you will discover you are the love that you're waiting for. You are not here to get love. You are here to discover the depth of love that you already are, and then share that love with the world. But first, you have to breathe. Any questions, comments, or reflections? Welcome. Thank you.
You nailed that one there.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not the only one. All right. See, the trap of spirituality is that it can appear to give you an experience of bliss or all is well, where all the problems disappear. And we think that's the answer. And so do we want more of that? And then spirituality and all of its activities can quickly become an escape method that says, I don't want to feel the human. I mean, just recognize this. How easy it would be to sit down to meditate that says, I don't want to feel this. I don't want to feel this. Trying to get away from the sincerity of feeling. When maybe a more sincere form of meditation is where you sit down and be still and allow yourself to cry. Or allow yourself to be angry. Rather than I want to go back to this person that I thought I was. That was all peaceful.
I do have one thing to say.
Beautiful.
I know, I think the huge impact this subject has, from my experience, is that everything that you talk about starts in childhood and parents and the beginnings of our life.
Yeah. The Big Bang.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's almost unavoidable. Unavoidable. You see, you can almost say that this dilemma that we're pointing to begins with a belief in separation. And we're born into that. And we all experience it in many different ways. We get conditioned in perspectives that believes things are separate. Which is almost like saying we believe in something called blame. We believe in something called rejection. And yes, in appearances, it looks like we experience those things. And interestingly enough, it's been my experience that the healing of what appeared to be childhood conditioning of separation was a healing that took place in recognizing that what I thought was separate wasn't separate at all. It's almost like recognizing what I thought I went through, I didn't actually go through. It's not what I thought it was. It was wholeness the whole time. And in this discovery, there is a magic that's seen to reconnect with a wholeness that's always been there. The discovery of which would not be possible if not for the play of separation. Which in some way or another points me to see the perfection of it all. That this illusion of separation is a playground that exposes the divine. And again, I wouldn't say this about somebody else's experience. It's just what's seen within the one that I am.
Interesting that you mentioned that it all starts in childhood, because it is this conditioning, and when we're babies, when we're born, we're not looking to please anyone.
Exactly.
We just need to be fed, we need our needs met, and we cry when we need that. And then we grow into this stage where we then please mom,
Yeah.
and that felt good.
Yeah.
And then we learn to please our parents and our teachers, and because that feels good inside. somehow we replace, even though our need is always to feel good, we lose
Yourself.
ourself and replace this
Yeah,
with this incoming
exactly.
pleasure. Like, okay, so when I please you, I am lovable,
Mhm.
Or you think you love me.
right? Instead of like, or and so it's like there's this face looking at us saying, like, heart, I love you because I'm showing, because I'm smiling at you, I'm hugging you, I'm giving you positive attention. But also with that face looking at us, we can also turn our own face towards us and say, I love you too. And we love you. We as in we, me and this other person, we're all loving you because this is a good feeling
Yeah,
type of thing.
exactly.
And that it's a nice way to take that into the now days and not lose the self while living and interacting with other people. Always kind of carrying that self-love with us. Because it's easy-er maybe to find that self-love in isolation. Like, okay, I'm working on myself right now, you know, I'm living alone, and these are the things I do in my daily life to love myself. But then to like incorporate other people and get lost in the daily stuff, then it's like, oh, okay, so when I please this person, there I go again. Like, I'm gone,
Yeah.
but
Here's an interesting concept. So, you have this baby, you have this 18-month-old child who's suddenly deprived of parents and total love for 5 years, say. And they don't have that. So what happens then?
The stage has been set.
Excuse me?
The stage has been set
Yeah.
where we explore how easy it is to get lost, yeah? Every human being.
Mm.
Every human being has experienced the play of getting lost. It'll never not be that way. Almost as if it has to happen.
Yeah.
It's encoded in the illusion of separation that where there is this and that, there will also be remembering and forgetting. There will also be losing and finding. This is where it said to be human is to suffer. So all of the things that we see going on in the world, all of the different ways children are raised, all of the different experiences, it's part of it. Almost like you can't have it without it. You see how that brings a compassion rather than a self-righteousness of how it should or should not be? It's almost like an unconditional love that says, yeah, I know. That's tough. Yeah, I know, that sucks. And in this, every human being will have their play, their stage, where they come in and they experience some reflection of separation where they lose themselves. And you see how this exists on a spectrum of color, not a hierarchy, so to speak, where some is better or worse. It's more of a spectrum of color where you have a light that gives birth to all flavors of color, and they're all equal in their own expression. You see, for light to be light, there has to be all of these colors. There just has to be. And you're never going to get rid of a particular color. if anything, you're going to recognize that color's equality, that it comes from light, which is also like saying you'll recognize that every person's difficulty comes from light. That in some way or another, it's there to be honored as it points back to the light. And I would say that that's often the difficulty in coming to terms with the experiences that we've been through. Is that we're wanting so badly for it to have been different rather than honoring. Seeing the necessity of what was, while also recognizing the truth of right now. You see, recognize that if there is going to be anything that creates a space for healing, a space for change, do you see how the only thing that's going to be is love? Just love. We can try and change things through fear. We can try and change things through blame. Only to find ourselves right back at the beginning. It's almost like looking at the dynamic between parent and child. Do you see that the parent's withholding of love from the child is a parent's withholding of love from themselves?
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so, in a way, how do you help the parent and child? Love. Again, if the parent's having a difficult time, they think they're unlovable. Right?
And that goes back to the parents.
Exactly. So how do you end the cycle? Love.
Yeah.
Forgiveness. Which is the exact opposite of what the world wants to do. The world wants to find somebody to blame. Whose fault is it? Well, it's my parents' fault. Well, it's my parents' parents' fault. It's an unending cycle.
And it's like we don't have to love and forgive outside of ourselves, that person. Because that's, again, denying the self. Saying, putting it outside of our being and onto that person. It's like, okay, no, when I fill my own body with love and forgiveness and acceptance, then that just radiates from me, and there is no job to do, no one to forgive. And it allows others who are struggling with their own self-love to feel what self-love feels like through you.
Mm-hmm. And do you see how, in a way, what that's saying is, if you want to wake up the world, wake up all parts of yourself.
Yeah.
It's like I've heard many parents ask me, how do I teach this to my children? Stop. See it in yourself. When you see it in yourself, it moves through you. How do I wake up the world? Stop. That is all a distraction. That is all an avoidance. The parent that's trying to fix the child is avoiding looking at themselves. The person trying to fix the world is avoiding a deep sincerity. It's always going to be pointed back inward. And yet we will find endless distractions for there are infinite things to blame.
And in that there are infinite ways to love yourself.
Exactly.
Just a bunch of lessons.
How fun is that?
Really?
Throughout your life to discover infinite ways of extending love. It's like an artist who never runs out of things to paint. What a playground. And as we get going along such a journey, we find deeper depths of that love, which also propose their own sense of challenge. Thus you have growth. And in that is the expansion.